What's up, guys? We are back with another Masters of the Universe Origins review, taking a look at a full wave, and this is kind of a big wave for a number of reasons. Heavy hitter characters, kind of variants in many ways, and then we've got the introduction of a non-Masters character into Masters of the Universe. So we're taking a look at 4 figures, of course. So we've got Clawful, so a main bad guy. Can't go wrong with him. We've got Anti-Eternia He-Man. So this was a holdover from the German audio dramas. And this guy appeared in Classics and is, probably one of my favorite figures in Classics. But we finally get him in Origins. We get the Horde Trooper, and, I love Horde Troopers. I've got tons of the Classics one, and I've already got a small army of this guy too. Before we even get him out of the box, I've already got a small army, and I'm really excited just to see what this guy's got going on, because I know he's got exploding armor, which definitely is awesome. And then the last one we've got is Sunman. So this guy is not a Masters of the Universe character. Well, I guess he is now, but he historically was not. He was from Olmec Toys as sort of a competitor to MOTU back in the day. So it's really cool to see this guy show up, in modern toy lines. I didn't know anything about Sunman until I was an adult. I had never come across this thing when I was a kid, for sure. But this is pretty cool. So we've of course got these here in our standard Origin style package. So you've got the lava burst in the background, figures in the bubble, and then the back has some stellar artwork as usual. You've got cross-sell for the other figures in the wave alongside He-Man and Skeletor, and you've also got that sort of vintage instruction art callback. So let's do it. Let's pull them out and take a look. And here we go, out of the package. We're going to start with Anti-Eternia He-Man. Not for any particular reason. I'm pretty much excited for all of these figures because they're all kind of heavy hitters. Anti-Eternia He-Man, Sunman, Horde Troopers, Clawful. Clawful's probably at the bottom of the list for me just because he's kind of overshadowed by some of these. But I do really like Anti-Eternia He-Man. He's one of my favorite Classics figures. Just the idea is stupid and goofy, and that's pretty much all it takes for me in many instances. So he's an anti-He-Man, so he's super evil, and he is as black as can be. So I do really like this guy. He is, of course, your standard MOTU Origins figure, so there's really nothing surprising here. We'll run through Articulation real quick and just sort of get to it. So, you've got a head that's on a ball peg, so it can go all the way around. You've got your arms that go out at the shoulders. I'm going to take this shield off, take the sword away. Let's just take it all away. And we've got swiveling arms, you've got your swiveling rotating elbow, you've got swiveling rotating wrists, you've got your waist twist, we've got legs that go out, pretty decent. Kick forward a little bit, kick backwards. You've got your knees, they rotate and hinge. You've got a boot cut, and then you've got a really good rocker and hinges down at those ankles. So, pretty normal for this kind of figure, and it is very much like a product of the 80s and kind of a modern mixed together, which is the whole hallmark of Origins. It's not vintage, but it's not modern either when it comes to articulation. I do, of course, however, really find that this guy is all about the aesthetics. So it's a black He-Man, literally just injected black plastic, and then he's got some sort of reddish-orange accents on the armor. Of course, you can take the chest piece off if you need to see those rippling pecs, if you need to see those shredded abs a little bit more, you can take that off. And then he's got sort of burgundy, furry loincloth and boots and hair. The head sculpt is not the standard Origins He-Man head sculpt. It is the vintage style head, which I do think is the right idea for this guy. I prefer it. I like that Origins head, fine. It's good enough on its own, but I still kind of prefer the vintage one overall. I don't know, just because nostalgia, I'm sure. But I think it works well for Anti-Eternia He-Man here. He's got the red, sort of pupilless eyes. Makes him look a little bit more evil, a little bit more devious. And then we do, of course, get our standard He-Man fare when it comes to accessories, like you already saw. So you get the sword, done up in just a nice flat black. We get the axe, which can be stored on his back, just like the sword can as well. And then you also get the shield, and then he has one of those sort of splayed finger hands that you usually see for shields. I'm not the biggest fan of it. I kind of wish it was just a gripping hand, so he could, specifically so he could dual wield the axe and the sword. But this is probably how I will have him kitted out at all times anyway. So you get all the hallmarks, all the big ones, all the hits when it comes to He-Man accessories, just in a nice black, which frankly is probably worth the price of admission for a lot of folks anyway, just to get a new colorway. So I think he's pretty solid. I've been waiting for this guy. I would love, if you're listening, Mattel, I would love to get more in this. You know, give me an Anti-Eternia Orko, Man-at-Arms. Frankly, do a lot of them. I would really just gobble them up. So I think this guy's fantastic. I'm really excited to see him in the line. And if this is the only one we ever get, you know, barring the fact that I don't know that they've announced others already somehow, I will still be very happy. Now, on the flip side to Anti-Eternia He-Man's pure evil, we've got, well, basically pure good here, right? So we've got our Sunman figure, and if you're not familiar with the history on this guy, you know, I would suggest checking it out, because it is a very interesting story in how this came to be and why Olmec toys existed, and of course the fact that it exists in Origins, because this was a competitor to MOTU back in the day. Not nearly as successful, obviously, but it's weird to see a competitor be absorbed into the line in general. So I think it's pretty cool, not to mention the fact that I think this figure turned out to be incredibly good. It is, of course, still an Origins figure through and through, but he looks really good. He does have maybe one little bit of limitation compared to some other figures, because of these wings. They do kind of get in the way of the head a little bit, but otherwise, he's basically the same as anything else, so I'm not going to run through it too much. The wings are, of course, a big focal point, so they are kind of goofy and kind of awkward on this guy, but you can also take them off if you don't want to have the wings on him, because they're just a separate piece. They just sit between the chest and the head, and you can also shove them up under the back of the armor to make it look like the wings are coming out his back, you know, like, I guess like you expect all wings to normally be. So you do have some options there. I really like the colors on this guy. Frankly, that's my big thing for him, is because the colors are, in many ways, pretty wacky. So you've got these sort of orangey red colors, you've got this yellow sunburst on his chest, the humongous yellow wings, and then you've got green and black underwear, you know, the loincloth and the belt, but the shield ties it all together. So there's a lot here that is kind of like contrasting and clashing colors, but somehow this really works, and I think in general it's just a cool looking figure, and he's definitely going to be a bit of an eye catcher on your shelf. I do think that the head sculpt is really well done. Eyes are really clean and crisp, so are the eyebrows. The hair up here is all textured, so it's got a little bit of kind of a rough feel to it, so it's not just sort of super smooth, which I think would have been the wrong direction to go, so that looks really nice. And in general, this is just, I don't know, it's just a really good figure. Like, I was really excited about him to begin with, but once I got him out of the package, he's kind of the one I haven't really been able to put down. And he's not even the one I was most excited for in this one. I was really excited for the Horde Trooper, probably the most, just because I love him so much. But he's been a lot of fun just to play around with. I think those wings kind of add a little bit of an extra flair to him and make him a little bit more fun to sort of swap that around with and just figure out different ways to display him. And then, of course, he does come with you know, some unique accessories here. One thing to note, he doesn't have the splayed finger hand that you usually see for figures, especially with shields. He's just got another gripping hand over here, so he can grip the shield and it still clips on. And this, of course, like I said, kind of ties them all together. So it's got all of his colors all in one spot. So the green, the sort of red, orange, and then that yellow. And then he's got this really weird weapon. Like, it's kind of like a javelin kind of thing. And I thought it was going to be really unwieldy at first, but it's actually pretty cool. Like, I actually do really like this one. It's just different enough that it seems like it's a lot of fun just to actually have him hold it. So there's a lot of cool stuff with this guy, not just the story or not just the reason why he is in Origins, but the figure on its own is probably going to be, I don't know, up there for figure of the wave for a lot of folks, I'm sure. I mean, it's a wave of heavy hitters through and through, really. But this guy is going to kind of edge them all out, I think, just because it is so weird to see a competing line absorbed into a line, you know, 40 years later, and it actually works. And then, of course, we're going to get the bad guys that are associated with him. We're going to get him in Masterverse, so I'm really excited about this one. I think it's just a cool idea that works exceptionally well. Maybe my least favorite, that's the best way to say it, least favorite, because he's not a bad figure by any means. He's just kind of overshadowed for me personally by the rest of this wave, is going to be Clawful. But this guy's pretty cool. I mean, he's still a heavy hitter figure in many ways, and I'm a big fan of this guy when it comes to just character. He is still very much MOTU Origins kind of figure. He's kind of basic in some ways, you know, there's nothing too crazy about his design. So, you know, this obviously is like a figure that shares parts with Buzz-Off. He comes with his classic, you know, green mace club thing that fits in one hand specifically. He does get an action feature. So you've got this little lever over here that will allow you to pinch in typical Lobster Man fashion, or Claw Man, Crab Man, whatever we're going to do, Crustacean Man fashion. And he looks pretty good. I'm pretty happy with him overall. I really like the detail on the claw. It doesn't have any paint on it, but that's not to be expected, really. So you've got a lot of sort of like craggy texture is the best way to say it. Looks good. Maybe if it had like a hit of a wash, it would look a little bit better. Armor is removable, so if you wanted just to have a very tan man with some, you know, crustacean features, you've got that. The head sculpt, I think, is pretty good. If I have one criticism about this guy, is that I think the head sits kind of low. Like, if you pop the head off and just sort of like rest it on there, I think it looks a little bit better. And then when you push it down, like, he's got sort of like a no-neck situation going on. So I say it, I might do something about that. You know, check back in a month or a year and I won't have ever touched it. But he does look pretty good overall. I mean, the paint and the sculpt on the head look really nice. The armor does look really good. This is all textured, so it's not just paint. All of that's sort of ribbed. And then, of course, you know, again, he has a lot of those buzz-off-y kind of things with the legs and the feet, things like that. And, of course, you know, again, he's got his very clashing mace that does not fit his color scheme whatsoever, but, of course, will draw your eye. He does hold it kind of funny because, of course, he doesn't have an actual hand, but you can get it in there good enough. So I think he's a pretty solid figure overall. Nothing really to complain about except maybe my perception about that head and the neck. He's just kind of overshadowed because, you know, in a wave of heavy hitters, one of them has to be the least heavy, right? Now, I don't know if I would say I'm saving the best for last. I'm definitely saving the one that I've been most excited about for last because I just really like the Horde. That's pretty much all it comes down to. I like the Horde. I love Hordak. I really like pretty much all of the She-Ra villains, and Horde Troopers are, of course, a core component of that. And despite how much I say I'm not an army builder, I do like to build certain troops. And this guy is one of them. So, yeah, this guy's pretty cool. Like, he's very much what you would expect. He's still very, very MOTU Origins. Like, there's really nothing different about this guy in terms of his construction. He just happens to be a new kind of figure. He does, however, have an action feature, which I think is pretty cool. The chest will explode. So if you push the button on his chest, it will allow the armor to pop apart. And you can see his exposed robo guts on the inside, which I think is pretty cool. You know, it's pretty much illustrated heavily on the backer card artwork on the back for this particular figure. So I do really, really like that. You know, how much I'm going to use it, who knows? Probably not a whole lot. But it's certainly a fun thing, especially if you happen to be a kid playing around with this guy. Now, beyond that, though, this guy does have pretty unique parts. Of course, he's very much a different kind of figure because of that construction when it comes to his torso. But you're not really losing anything in terms of articulation here either. For the most part, he is mostly just cast in this sort of pearlescent style plastic. So he's not a matte finish. So he's not very, like, you know, cartoony in that way. But he's also, you know, he's also not vac metalized or anything. He's very much kind of like what you expect if you were to get this guy from like Hasbro or something. This is how they would put him together. They use this sort of pearlescent metallic plastic a lot. And I think it works pretty well on this guy. He doesn't have a lot of paint. As a result, he's got some, you know, you've got hits of black, you've got the red for the Horde crest, and then you've got black and yellow for the visor. I will say that these kind of across the board are a little bit wonky. Paint hasn't been too clean on all of them. They're okay, and certainly not anything I'm going to get too fussy about, but it's something to note. He does come with the Horde staff, and then of course, you know, you've got like your imp on the end here. It's just cast in that sort of orangey red plastic. What's interesting about this guy, though, is that they were solicited, and they probably still are, with a white Horde crossbow, and none of them that I have came with that. So I'm assuming it was just something that was lost in terms of production, you know, budgeting and things of that nature. Not too beat up about it. My preferred weapon is going to be the staff anyway, but that's not to say I wouldn't have enjoyed some options just to break them up, you know, have some using the staff, some using a crossbow. But it's not the end of the world to me. I do, though, in general, think that this guy is pretty awesome. And of course, what's really cool about these is that you can, you know, if you want to get crazy, you can put another head on this guy and make him into something that, you know, somebody that's wearing Horde armor, things of that nature. If you want to put, you know, a He-Man head in there, you can do that kind of stuff. It all comes down to which heads are going to be able to fit in that cavity, and that's certainly not everybody. But I think it's just a cool idea overall. Very, very happy to have this guy in the line, and I may or may not have already gone a little overboard with getting one too many, maybe one too many, but I'm really, really happy with the way these guys turned out. I'm glad they retained an action feature, and they just look cool. It's a Horde Trooper. It's like my favorite army builder when it comes to anything MOTU related, so I couldn't not get a bunch of them. So yeah, overall, I mean, I've said it enough. This is a heavy hitter wave. This is a very, very strong wave for me. I'm very happy with pretty much everything going on here. Anti-Eternia He-Man, Horde Trooper, Clawful, Sunman. The introduction of Sunman into MOTU is pretty wild. Like, I still think it's just the weirdest thing to actually have happened, but I think it's cool that it happened. Like, it's just not a common thing to see a competing franchise absorbed into another 40 years later, kind of out of nowhere like this. So I think it's pretty cool, and it's a really solid figure. There's just a lot of good figures in this wave, especially if you're into army building and also happen to love the Horde. You can go crazy with Horde Troopers. So that's going to do it for this look at the Masters of the Universe Origins Wave 8. Let me know what you guys think. Feel free to like, comment, subscribe, and share, and until next time.